Hello, my name is Nhan Dao, and I am a recent PhD graduate at the University of Nevada, Reno, under the guidance of Dr. Kerry Ryan. As part of my dissertation work, I developed an element to represent the behavior of a triple friction pendulum bearing. This model is useful for both research and industry use of OpenSees. We have recently learned of increasing interest and use of OpenSees among practitioners, especially those who design base isolated structures. We have also learned of several recent examples of OpenSees users that have expressed the need for a triple friction pendulum bearing element, and our contribution meets this need. A triple friction pendulum bearing can produce 3 pendulum mechanisms with 5-stage behavior. Under a small earthquake, the first pendulum mechanism is formed with high stiffness. The second pendulum mechanism with moderate tension stiffness is formed under a moderate earthquake. The third pendulum mechanism is formed under a strong earthquake. The tension stiffness of this pendulum mechanism is small so that the isolated structure and its contents are protected. Triple friction pendulum bearings are also designed such that they produce the stiffening stages to reduce the displacement limit during very strong earthquakes. This multi-stage behavior can be represented by assemblage of springs shown in this figure. Current elements in analysis software can be used to build this model. However, we found that for three-dimensional behavior, a self-contained element has more reliable convergence properties. The developed self-contained element accounts for the bidirectional interaction in the horizontal behavior. The horizontal response of a friction bearing is dependent on vertical load, and this dependence is accounted for in the developed element. The dependence of friction coefficient on both vertical load and velocity is also accounted. As you can see, many parameters are required to define this general friction coefficient model. Because of that, detailed calibration of the friction coefficient is required. However, in this element, the user can also define simpler friction coefficient models such as constant friction coefficient model, vertical load independent friction coefficient model, or velocity independent friction coefficient model. This is the command defining the element in OpenSees. 34 parameters are needed to define the element with general friction coefficient model. For simpler friction coefficient model, the number of independent parameters is smaller. The detailed information and application examples are available in the documentation at the OpenSees website. The developed element has been validated using full-scale bearing data from an e-defense test. As you can see, both constant friction coefficient model and general friction coefficient model predict the displacement of the isolation system from the test well, but the general friction coefficient model produces a better match to the test data. These are other aspects of the element. Overturning moments and twists due to eccentricity of forces are included. The Rayleigh damping is also included in the element. Single friction pendulum bearings and double friction pendulum bearings can be modeled by this triple friction pendulum bearing element. And here are references for the developed triple friction pendulum bearing element. Thank you very much for listening.